Well, I'm sitting quite nicely here. I got the frame structure figured out for the load bed. But I guess I better get off my ass and do something about that tailgate. Coming up. Hey, how's it, folks? Welcome back. And a special welcome to my new subscribers. Very happy to have you guys on board. I trust we will have a long and interesting journey together. So if you don't know me, my name's Dirk de Villiers. I'm Ratross, South Africa. And I run a small one-man shop out here in the middle of the forest where I realize a rusty dream. Right, so I've cut this piece shorter now. That's the original back. I don't know what you would call this piece, but that's the original part. This is what I've cut off. So that's effectively, well, how much narrower this load bin is. This piece is now going to go in here. Like that. There we go. So I have welded on these flanges here on either side. I'm bolting this on because I want to be able to take the whole load bin apart in pieces. So I'm not going to weld it on. And also this way is one old man can move the whole thing around and put pieces and carry on. Yeah. So I can disassemble the whole thing. Here's a close-up view of the flange. I just use a piece of 50 by 3 flat bar. For my American friends, that's 2 inches by 1/8 thick. So I've welded this to the fender piece, the side piece. But this piece is now bolted to it. I can then remove it. I'm making progress here. So yeah, next up on the menu will be for me to narrow the tailgate so that we can fit a tailgate in here. Jeez, the weather is crazy, eh? It was actually quite nice and warm, and then all of a sudden this cold front blew in from nowhere. So I'm back in the war jacket again, yeah. But anyway, so yes, with the load bin being narrower now, obviously the original tailgate is too wide or too long. I'd like to keep it. So I'm going to cut a section out of them, make it narrower, weld it back together again. But if I do that as it is, I'm going to actually mess up the embossed letters here because of that spacing. That's not going to work out anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually cut this whole section out first. Start with the embossed letters, remove it. Then I'm going to cut the section out of the tailgate, make it narrower. Weld it back, then put this on afterwards. It took 3.5 discs to cut this plate out. I measured it, it's 1.6 millimeters thick. I tell you, they don't make them like that anymore. I go through these discs like a kid goes through candy. I have to buy them in boxes of 25 just to keep up. A small pile of Ford now lying on the floor. That's what I have now. A tailgate with a window. That's what comes out of the inside of the tailgate. So truck's been carting around that stuff for a long time. I'm saving some serious weight here. Okay, let's see what happens. Haha! There we go, we've got half a tailgate. So let's measure what remains. So the body gap here measures about 6 millimeters, quarter inch. So I'm going to go with that and subtract that from my other measurements. Don't fall down. Right, so let's see if it fits. I've just clamped some pieces of flat bar on here, so I can hold it in place on this side. If it goes in, let's find out. Yeah, the old man can still measure. Okay, so there we have it basically. It's going to need a little bit of fine tuning maybe. I'm just checking the body gaps here. Let's see if it'll open. I'm just going to tighten my clamps. Hey, it works too, look. So my mom always said, cleanliness is next to godliness. Well, if it comes to my hands and my clothing, I'm very far from heaven. But I think she was maybe referring to welding. So yeah, with welding, you definitely want clean. Any contamination, any bit of paint, you're going to get bad welding. So yes, when it comes to welding, cleanliness is definitely next to godliness. Okay, my weld seam is clean. I've got everything lined up and clamped into place, so I'm ready to weld it together. So if this was a resto mod that needed a flawless paint finish, I'm going to have to weld this really carefully, spend a lot of energy and time on it. You would have to weld it very slowly, small little tacks, cool it down with compressed air in between, all just to minimize shrinkage and warping from the weld heat. You would want to dolly and hammer it, or hammer and dolly it, which you can't do here because it's double skin. So yeah, no matter how good you are going to still have to fill and fair it. Now, you know what? I've done a lot of sanding in my life, and at this point, life is too short to be sanding Bondo. So my approach is going to be a little bit different. I'm building a rat truck, so I'm going to put a strap in here and stitch it to go with the look. I'll still join it properly, but yeah, that's what I'm going to do. You probably can't see it, but I'm a little proud right here. I can feel it with my finger. I'm flush up there. I'm flush down there. You can see it from the grind marks. Here I'm standing out. So a push stick that rests against your body works pretty well. There we go. And again up here. Feels good. Before I tack this bottom piece, it's always a good thing to just check it with a straight edge across, and I can see it needs to come out a little bit. So I'm just going to clamp a straight edge across here to hold it. Except I can't find a spot for the clamps to grip. So instead I'm just going to put this across here and just hold it like that. Try and do everything at the same time, holding it like that and then giving it a light tack. That's pretty okay. So I don't want to tack more here yet, because the more I weld here, the more it wants to do that. So I'm first going to put a tack on that side now. You can see the weld doing a funny thing. That's contamination. That is actually from the rust that's trapped between these two pieces here. Not much you can do about it. Okay, that feels pretty good, so I'm going to give it a light tack right there as well. I think my amps are a little higher, or my volts rather. But anyway, there we go. So that's holding it there, and I think now I can give it a tack down here. It feels pretty good. I'm going to flip it down now so I can give it some tacks on the back, top and bottom as well. Okay, the inside of the flap, what do you call this thing again? Tailgate. Right, it feels pretty good. I'm going to give it a tack right there. Feels good. Feels good. I'll take my clamps off. Yeah, that also feels good. Okay, and this one here, that feels good. Quite a bit of a gap here. I'm just going to turn the volts down on the machine a little bit. Okay, lower volts, lower amps, so let's see. Okay, and take my clamps off. Okay, I've got a tack there already. So let's see if we can bridge this gap. Another thing that affects the amps is the wire speed, feed speed, so I'm going to just turn that down a little bit too. Let's give it a shot. I measured the gap here now, and it's just a little bit more than 3 mil, maybe 3.5 millimeters. In America, that's a little bit more than 1/8 of an inch. Yeah, this is real world shit. Will not always have perfect gaps, but yeah, you got to deal with it. So it just shows you can easily bridge a gap like this. Just play with your settings on your machine, lower volts, slower wire feed speed, and then you can bridge it. It's messy, but you can do it. So to minimize distortion as much as possible, what you would want to do is tack here, give it air, tack there, give it air to cool it down, tack there, give it air to cool it down, and then you start again, and so forth. So it's quite a time consuming process, but if you do it that way, you will remember welds cause shrinkage. So the more heat, the more shrinkage. So if you do it that way, you will minimize that shrinkage as much as possible. In a perfect setup, you would want to have a dolly underneath and then hammer it afterwards lightly as well to stretch it up again. Of course, in this case we can't do it because we've got a double skin. And then you would do a little bit on the outside, flip it down, do a little bit on the inside, let it all cool down, go back to the outside, do a little bit again, and so you carry on until you're done. Slowly. That's the key as slowly and as little heat as possible. That's for that perfect job, or as perfect as you want to try and get. Right, welding is done. Obviously we need to grind it. So running a flap disc is great. Use a new one though, because it's nice and flat. An old worn one is just going to cause you headaches. These things are quite expensive, so I'm a bit of a tight ass. So I run 2 grinders. I knock off the worst with a normal grinding disc, and then I just use my flap disc for the final finishing. If you were to run your finger across this now, you would feel a little dent in there, and that's because of the weld shrinkage. So at this point you would want to hammer and dolly it. Like I said, you can't get a dolly in, so you will have to live with it. So it would need a little bit of fairing and filling. It's not much. Sure, I wonder if it's 1/2 millimeter, but you can feel it and you'll definitely see it. But yes, I'm not going that route. Like I said, life's too short for sanding Bondo. Okay, I'm quite glad this happened, so I can show you. You can see right there, if you look carefully, is a pinhole. If you get pinholes, don't stress about it. If any guy tells you he never gets pinholes, he's probably lying. Real world shit this. So yeah, if you get a little pinhole, yeah, just weld it up. It works well to just up the amps a little bit, or the volts then, to get a little bit better let's try that again. Better penetration. Some more real world shit. That's what it looks like if the 2 surfaces on either side is not mated perfectly. So yeah, that difference here is, yes, I wonder if it's 1/2 millimeter, but you will see it. If you could hammer and dolly this, you could sort it out. I can't. So again, if you were to build a truck that needs to get a flawless paint job, filling and fairing. However, none of that stuff we just talked about actually matters, because I'm a rat rod builder. This is going to be a rat truck, and rat rod builders do not go into those aisles that sell filler and sandpaper and Bondo. So instead of hiding this joint, I actually want to accentuate it. So I'm going to give it a bandage. So the plan is to put this across here, like so. Run it all the way around. And we're going to give it some stitches for that rat rod look, and everybody can then actually see where we joined it. Right, so I'm not going to try and bend it around yet. I'm just going to start by tacking it right in the corner here, where it's nice and tight at the moment. And I'm going to work my way up. And what I do on the one side, I do on the other side. Keep things equal. Right, so far so good. Right, now it's time I can bend it now. Need to hammer it a little bit here. Alright. So I want my tacks to be nice and equally spaced, so I'm actually going to mark them. I think about 1.5 inches is a good spacing. Like that. There we go. And I want the same on this side. 3, 4.5, 6. So now I can give it a tack at each of my markings, step by step. So I check my first one, make sure it's flush. Give it a tack. And his brother on this side. And so I work my way up. So I'm just going to continue like that on the inside as well, so that it goes all the way back down to there. At least my piece of plate is long enough. So I'm just going to let this cool down a little bit and then I will do the other ones. I'm just going to give it a quick wipe with the flat disc. There we go, stitches are done. What do you think? The piece that I cut out that's got the embossed Ford letters is obviously way too long now. So I'm going to remove sections so that I can move the letters closer together and then it will fit on my shortened tailgate. A shortened Ford. Grinding off all the paint on these pieces was a pain in the ass, but it's done. Right, now I can glue my letters back together again. Come on. Wait. So I actually like the look of this window in the tailgate. But I also didn't feel like all the trouble of welding in those embossed letters. So instead I came up with this. After welding them together, I added a frame from some flat bar, 20 by 5, 3/4 inch wide. I welded on some studs. So now I can just do this. It should fit in here. There you go. What do you think? I kind of like it. I went to the trouble of taking all the paint off of the letters. That concludes my fabrication of the tailgate. Thanks very much for watching. Appreciate it. Next up, I will start working on those rusty fenders. Until then, take care, look after yourself, and have a good one.